Hello everybody, I am Cameron Porter with Robin Hood Studios. We're so excited to have this first video go live. This channel is dedicated to teaching small business owners how to use video more effectively to grow their businesses and how to increase their standard of quality to something that will drive droves of people into their businesses. So this first video, we're gonna keep it pretty simple. We're gonna go over some 10 basic tips on how to shoot better video with this. Now, I'm assuming most of you are shooting on smartphones. Professional video equipment can get pretty expensive. So for the person shooting on a smartphone, these are 10 tips for you. The first tip, don't shoot like this. Shoot like this, okay? Every computer monitor, laptop screen, TV you've ever seen has probably been oriented like this, not like this. So anybody consuming your content on anything other than a smartphone is gonna be really glad you went like this, so they don't have the black bars on the side or the weird blurred version of the image. Okay, so that is tip number 1. Tip number 2, shoot at eye level. Don't film from here, film from right here. Why? Because this is more natural to the human eye. This is how you see other people, unless you're a really short person or a really tall person. But if you shoot like this, you'll look normal in the screen, and whoever you're filming will look normal in the screen. When you shoot high or you shoot low, parts of the body are actually physically closer to the camera, and so they can look bigger than other parts of the body when they're actually not. It makes for some weird combinations. So make sure you shoot at eye level whenever possible. Tip number 3, use a little thing called the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds divides the camera frame into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. So you kind of make these imaginary lines in your mind, these horizontal and vertical lines, and each intersection, so there's 4 total, each intersection is where you want to put your subject, whatever you're focusing on. Now this video actually technically breaks the rule of thirds because I'm the subject and I'm not in one of those intersections. But you'll notice that my eye line is really close to that third horizontal line, so we're still adhering to it. And where I'm looking directly at the camera and I'm holding things up like this and I'm doing this, it makes a lot more sense to film in this manner. So technically we are not strictly obeying the rule of thirds, but that's because we have a very specific reason why. Tip number 4, control the background. If you look behind me, you'll see that it's just so happens to be filled with shelves of our very professional video equipment that instills confidence in you that we know what we're talking about. That wasn't an accident. We set this up, I mean, we had the gear obviously, we chose this part of our studio and we set it up specifically to do that. Controlling your background is very important. Don't put a window in your background. We'll talk more about why in a little bit later, but don't put a bright window in your background. Don't have distracting things. Don't have your kid playing Xbox on the carpet behind you in your background. Control your background. Tip number 5, give yourself depth. You'll notice me and the background are actually pretty far apart. You can't see, but we're a good that background is a good 6 feet behind me. And there's a reason for that. We see all the time, this is probably the single biggest problem we see with amateur video, is they'll get a background, sometimes it's a nice background, but they'll put the subject right up against it and it looks flat and it looks terrible, and there's nothing that will destroy your shot faster than having no depth. Tip number 6, shoot in a quiet place. Now most of you, this is pretty intuitive. You've already thought about this. Like you don't want to be filming in a loud restaurant or else you won't be able to hear anything. But this goes a step deeper. There's a lot of noises that you just consciously don't even notice. You just kind of ignore them because you're so used to them. But when you're filming a video, you need to pay attention to those sounds. Like, do you live on a busy street? Are there cars driving by outside? If there are, they're probably kind of loud. If you're in an office setting, is the air conditioner running? If the air conditioner is running, you better believe you're going to be able to hear it in your video, and it's going to screw things up. So control for that. If you can shut off the air conditioner, shut it off. If you can find a room that it's not on, or find a way to get rid of that noise, do it. Find a quiet place and pay attention to those noises that you may not notice on a day-to-day basis. Tip number 7, buy a lavalier microphone that plugs into your phone. This is really important. Your phone shoots pretty decent video quality. If you're doing something simple like a vlog, your phone should be sufficient for your image. But for your audio, they could put the best microphone in the history of the world, the most technologically advanced microphone on the planet, in your phone, and it would still not get great audio purely because of how far away from you it is. I mean, unless you're standing as close to it as I am. But they don't put the most expensive and the most technologically advanced mics in your phone. They put whatever they can get away with at the price point they want. And they are just not good enough. If you want quality audio, which will make your videos stand out far and above anybody else's that's doing what you're doing, you need to buy a lavalier microphone and plug it into your phone, okay? Tip number 8, control your lighting and add light if necessary. You don't, your phone has an automatic setting that it will adjust shutter speed when it's too dark. And what that does is add a ton of motion blur, and the footage gets very grainy, it gets very noisy, it gets very ugly, and lots of motion blur. You want to add light so that it doesn't do that, okay? If you're not, you can get lights for fairly cheap on Amazon, but if you're not willing to make or able to make that investment right now, just bring a lamp. Okay, bring a lamp as close to you as you can get it without it being on camera, and just get as much light there as you can. Even if you have to have one of your kids or a friend hold their phone with the flashlight on their phone like that and light you this way, that is better than nothing. You definitely want to add light wherever possible to make you as bright as you can be in the shot. Tip number 9. Use a tripod or a gimbal if you're doing something with moving, you're doing a moving shot. Don't just let somebody hold it. I know your phone has optical image stabilization, but there's still, if we were shooting this and every now and then the camera was kind of going like this a little bit, even if it was nice and floaty, you don't want movement at all. So you want to put it on a tripod if you're doing that. If you do want movement, buy an Osmo or some other sort of handheld stabilizer to put the phone on. And not because you necessarily need the extra stabilization, but because when you're holding your phone like this and you're holding it with your hands while you're filming, there's going to be some movement. There's going to be some movement like this, and almost every time this happens, you'll get what's called tactical interference on your audio, because you've got this motion that's actually making a very quiet rubbing noise. To your phone, that's not quiet. That's crazy loud. The entire world is being rubbed by an enormous finger, according to your phone's microphone. And lastly, tip number 10, something that maybe you'll be surprised that we need to mention. Maybe you won't be, but to use the rear camera on your phone, not the front camera. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, the rear camera is a better camera. They put better specs, they put more hardware into making the rear camera a much more sophisticated, higher quality camera than the front camera. The second reason is, if you are filming with the front camera, you'll actually be able to see yourself on the screen. And what's going to happen is you're going to look at yourself instead of looking at the camera lens. And I'm sure you've seen videos where this happens, where the person just seems to be looking right off the camera screen. They're not quite looking at you, and they do that the entire time. That's probably because they're looking at themselves. And it's extremely difficult not to look at yourself when you are able to see it. So by turning it around, using the rear-facing camera, you never have to worry about that, and you're gonna get better results because it's a better camera. So those are our 10 basic tips for how to get better video when you're shooting with your smartphone. I hope that was helpful. If there's something that we didn't cover and you got questions, please leave a comment. We would love nothing more than to answer your questions. Also, I know this is our very first video, but we're gonna be releasing these weekly, and we're going to be helping you do more video and do better video for your company every single week. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you get notified when we upload more content. Thank you so much. Again, I'm Cameron Porter with Robin Hood Studios, and we'll see you next week.